In this lesson, we're going to talk about adding users. Before I add a user, there's a couple of things I need to know. The first thing I actually need to know is what group I'm going to put that user in. So I'm going to take a look at the groups that we've got on the system, and I can make a determination at that point which group that I actually want this user to be a part of by default. Of course, I can also add users, but in this case, I don't want to add a user. I just want to add the user that I've got to an existing group. And I saw staff here a second ago. That's a pretty good one. Right there is staff. So let's add the user to the staff group. Again, I'm going to use sudo because I need to have administrative privileges or root level privileges. So I'm going to use sudo. Then I'm going to do user add. And I'm going to say the directory that I want to use is home. So this is my home directory. And the directory I'm going to use is /home/Rick. And then my shell. So we talked previously about bash being the shell that I use. Anytime I log in, it's going to execute this program. So I'm going to say in this case, my user is going to use /bin/bash. My group is going to be staff. And then I actually want user add to make the home directory for me. And so I'm going to add the user Rick with these parameters. Now, there are other parameters that I could set, including my real name, and that would get added to the password file as well. But in this case, I'm just going to set the basic parameters here that I need. So I need a home directory, I need a shell, and then I need a group. Now, if I take a look at password file, you can see that it actually added it. And this is my user ID here, this 1001. And then the group that I added this user to is 50. But what that says is that user belongs to that group. So let's say I want to make a change to a user. I could do user mod, and now let's say I want to put the user in, let's say, the ADM group, and I want to do that change to user Rick. Now, if we look at the password file, you'll see that the group ID here has actually changed. It's now 4 rather than 50. So I get all done with that. I actually want to delete the user. I can do that by doing userdel. So now I just take a look at the password file, make sure that the user is gone. And sure enough, at the end, the user is actually not there anymore. So in order to add users, you would use user add, and we can take a look at the man for that. We're going to create a new user, and we've got a number of parameters we can use, like comment, for example, in home directory, expire date, inactive, the group ID, so on and so forth. So I can add a lot of parameters to user add, but there's really a couple of things that you have to have. And of course, I have to use the user ID. If you want this to be interactive at all, it's got to have a home directory, and it's also got to have a shell. Now, the one thing that we didn't talk about was password. In order to set the password for that user, I would have to do this. So I'd say sudo password Rick. If I wanted to change my own password, I can just run password here, and it's going to prompt me for my current password. And then if I type my current password in, it's going to prompt me for the new password. That's how that actually would work if I wanted to change the password. So again, I could do password for my own user, or I could do password for another user. If I were an administrator, I can always change passwords for another user. Once we've added the user, we've created a password, I can modify it using user mod, and then if I've got a user I don't need anymore, I can just use userdel and delete that user.